I read a quote, Jack, where from you, which said, being undercover is very often quite boring. It's 99% waiting and 1% action. It's lonely. Now, along with it being lonely, I can only imagine that it's also stressful. Now, I read that you look after yourself physically and mentally now, but I don't imagine there was much of that during your time with the KGB. How did you deal with the stress of it all?
I didn't know that I was stressed, but now in hindsight, I pretty much know that I was. But living with stress, it becomes your normal, okay? And it didn't really impact me in my daily interaction with others to the extent I can imagine, because nobody ever said, "Hey Jack, what's wrong with you? You look depressed or stressed." No, I I'm fundamentally a stoic, and you know what stoicism is all about. You if something bad happens to you, you just like look at it and say, "Okay, on to the next thing." And again, I guarantee you I was stressed. And I tell you one thing, one clear sign that I was stressed was I became a drinker. The first time I drank a lot was the day I arrived in the United States. So I made it through customs and immigration at O'Hare. So I was through. And so whatever stress I felt at that time must have fallen off of me, but it didn't. So when I got to the hotel, I unpacked and I remember exactly what it was, a bottle of Johnny Walker Red, which I had bought, you know, without paying the duty, and drank half of it. I had never drunk that much. In Germany, we had beer, and so occasionally we would get a little inebriated, but not like this. And I just fell into a coma. Because the reason I thought, I got to sleep, I got to sleep, I got to sleep. No, if that's not stress, of course it was stress. And, the next day I had to take a couple of aspirins and wait until the headaches went away. And then, the rest of the stories in the book. Now, from that point on, I always had 2, 3, 4 drinks before going to sleep because I had like talked myself into that I needed it. Now, obviously, that was to deal with stress, so I could like relax and fall asleep. And I didn't want to, for some reason, I didn't want to like go to the doctor and ask for sleeping pills because it's kind of an oxymoron. Because I knew they could be addictive. Well, alcohol is addictive too. So with regard to the first half of the question, every field agent who has been in the field, regardless of whether they were CIA or Navy intelligence or and KGB, FSB, SVR, every field agent will tell you the same thing. There's a lot of waiting, and then there's short bursts of action, and that's when execution mode comes in. The bursts of actions are travels across borders, dead drop operations, meetings with other agents, not in the United States, but in foreign countries, and also mailing a letter with secret writing and making sure that you're not being followed. So that's surveillance detection. But when you have a full-time job that requires also overtime, you don't have a lot of time for the other stuff anyway. So at one point, and I think I wrote it in the book, is like I felt that the KGB work got in the way of my real job. So I had embraced that job as primary without realizing it. By the way, one more thing, loneliness. There was limited social interaction simply because I had to do other things, and like for instance, on a Thursday night, every Thursday I had to listen to the shortwave transmissions from the center. So I was never available on Thursday to go out with the guys or for a date or whatever, which I didn't like because it set a pattern. and patterns are the enemy of an agent because you can be detected based on certain patterns.
You mentioned about surveillance detection training,
Yeah.
and I presume being trained to assess people. What advice would you give to lawyers about assessing, say, witnesses or people in general? Is there a process to it?
Patterns are important, okay? And that even, you got say a witness and they use certain phrases over and over again. There's meaning to that. But I have something, a theory that I developed that makes a lot of sense. And I tell you how I came to this. I am now 73 years old. And sort of by the time I hit 55, 60, I had the ability to assess people very quickly, not in detail, but thumbs up or thumbs down. Somebody I would want to work with or somebody I want to stay away from. When I did a lot of hiring in information technology, in the beginning, I asked really tough technical questions. The second half of my career, I just had a conversation because I realized that whatever they know is going to be out of date next year anyway. And so I wanted to assess character. I wanted to assess drive. I wanted to assess intelligence, motivation, and also honesty. And over time, I realized that I have an instinct, what people call gut now, that is that is 95% accurate. I've almost never failed, and I call this thing subconscious pattern recognition. See, and this is something, it doesn't develop overnight. Even as a child, I would watch people. I was a people watcher. I was always curious. Like I was sitting in a restaurant and my mother would say, "Don't stare." Well, I was looking at a couple next table and I was wondering who would get up first to go to the bathroom. And then you see somebody fidget and aha, she's going, and that kind of stuff. And over time, when you consciously observe the people you interact with, your brain will develop a database of all kinds of clues, body language, the way they dress, the way they, even the way they talk. I can have a phone conversation with somebody, and within 10 minutes decide, uh, you know, whether they're good people and intelligent people. Period. And this, you put this all together, and I could like almost instinctively say good or no good, not any further, okay? Because then speculation. But my database is big. And now, one thing I have to say here, this only works in a Western culture, okay? I could not apply this in China or India. That's a different set of patterns that I haven't stored in my head. But it's a lifetime of observation, and this is like speaking. You will get better at it, but you need to be consciously just you know study the people that you're with, and that will give you an edge over the competition over time.
It seems obviously a big part of your life is moving into information technology,
Yeah.
and you entered corporate America and your version of the American dream, as you call it, and then I believe that cybersecurity has become an area of some expertise.
I'm sort of an expert in the human aspect of cybersecurity, and you may know that roughly 75% of breaches are due to human error. Okay, human error, not necessarily either error or malfeasance, but it's human action. The technical aspects of cybersecurity, I leave that to the experts. I'm far away from technology. I know what they're doing. I know why they're doing it, and I know it's important to have the technology to protect your cyber assets. But what most companies are not doing well enough is to train and educate their employee base and if you are in a high security environment, to also watch them. Not in a way that you become a police state, but you got to be watchful, because the insider is the biggest threat nowadays than any other. And the insider is not necessarily an agent. It's somebody who is inside and makes stupid mistakes and clicks on a link where the boss sends you an email. Hey, take a look at this. I just found that. And you click. No, you should ask the boss, did you just send that? I'm really distraught with the state of cybersecurity training, national cybersecurity training in the United States. We are very, very vulnerable, and there's not one institution that is taking this bull by the horn, because there's nothing to be gained. Politicians don't want to take that because it puts a burden on people, right? Cybersecurity will, make you learn stuff, make you sometimes slow down, and make it a little more awkward to do your job. So if, as a politician, I don't want to even touch that. And the other big force that could be it and should be it are the high tech companies, but they're not interested in slowing people down. They're interested in sales. So we got a problem here, and we got little children running around with iPhones and who have never been taught how to use them and what not to do with them. We still make people show that they can drive before we give them a license. We don't make people show that they are aware of the basics of cybersecurity before we give them iPads, iPhones, and what have you. And that it makes the West extremely vulnerable to particularly Russia and China.